Part 66. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 653. Can I ask you, do you have any tips for going down the mine? Yilin took the initiative to contact Yan Cao and was not ashamed to ask. Yan Cao was shivering and breathing cold air in the dark mine. He smashed a skeleton monster into pieces with a pickaxe. Before the skeleton monster stood up again, Yan Cao hid in the darkness behind the ore pile and answered the call. Are you also planning to improve the progress of the mine? No way, I need some materials. There was a hint of helplessness in Yilin's tone. Actually, there is nothing special about going down to the deep mines. Prepare food and water, kill when you see strange things, knock rocks when you see them, and explode when the rocks are piled densely. Find the stairs and quickly enter the next level. The main difficulty lies in the monsters. It's quite difficult for the chaotic monsters to form a coordination. Oh, that's quite difficult. Got it, thanks. The two ended the call in a friendly atmosphere. The crops in the fields will wither tomorrow. The ancient seeds Yilin planted in the summer finally bore fruit. Ancient fruits. It took a full 28 days to grow. The surface of the blue fruit is crystal clear, plump, and attractive, as if you take one bite, your mouth will be filled with juice. Yilin resisted the urge to eat it, threw the ancient fruit that she had managed to grow into the seed-generating machine, and got 3 more ancient seeds. He immediately understood how to increase the value of this fruit, so that there would be endless descendants. However, mass production of ancient fruits will have to wait until next spring. In other words, Yilin won't be able to taste the ancient fruit until next spring. Winter. Before that, Yilin had already asked Marnie about a lot of things to pay attention to before winter comes. Because Yilin helped Louis complete the strange commission of 10 bottles of truffle oil, Marnie's favorability increased significantly. Marnie was walking with a limp and sticking her hips out that day, as if she had hurt her back or hip. When Yilin thought about the injured Marnie still insisting on meeting Laolu every lonely and empty night, she suddenly felt that the reason behind it was heartwarming. This town is full of love and peace. Marnie said that before winter, she needed to stock up on hay and buy radiators on her farm in advance to prevent the animals from freezing to death. Livestock output in winter will be significantly reduced. The main reason is that the truffles produced by pig farming must be dug out in the wild, and the livestock are not allowed to go out in winter, which is equivalent to less income from truffle oil. Fortunately, Marnie's favorability level increased. In addition, Yilin turned a blind eye to the late-night tryst between Louis and Marnie, and did not reveal anything about it. The relationship between the second elder and him is getting better and better. Every time Yilin goes shopping at Marnie's farm, Marnie always thoughtfully gives Yilin a lot of tips about farm management. Before winter came, Yilin had already made a lot of preparations. A strong Nongzong person is so awesome. On the eve of winter. As usual, Yilin went to the mage tower and knocked on the door. The favorability of the Supreme Mage is also rising day by day. Yilin spends a lot of money every day to go to the hidden store of Kribus and snap up the daily limited amount of Void Essence and Sun Essence, and finally falls into the pocket of the Supreme Mage. Over time, Yilin not only made up for the wave of favorability she had deducted when she first met the mage, but even made a surplus. Every time he visits, the Supreme Master is always smiling, and he is finally able to receive customers normally during working hours. The Supreme Mage, Brother Russ, accepted the gifts as usual and prepared to close the door to drive away guests. However, Yilin moved quickly and squeezed through the crack in the door. Brother Lassie looked slightly startled and sighed, but did not activate the teleportation to blast Yilin away. "Don't touch my things," the Supreme Mage warned seriously, "especially my books." "Okay." Yilin readily agreed. Inside the house, the big pot was burning vigorously. There were black ripples inside. Bubbles come and go, exuding a strange smell. The mage threw all the void essence and sun essence he had just acquired into the pot. Next, there is a long wait. Are you doing alchemy? Yulin shamelessly entered the room, naturally not giving up this rare opportunity. Oh? Do you know alchemy? Brother Russ didn't want to pay attention to Yulin at first, but Yulin mentioned a topic that interested him. He looked at Yulin with a straight face, then shook his head. What kind of alchemy is this? It's just potions at the lowest level. Potions. Throwing specific alchemical materials into a pot and cooking them into potions under specific conditions is called potion science. Oh. When Yulin heard this, she lost interest. The Supreme Mage shook his legs rhythmically, and after Yulin said oh, he stopped talking to her, as if he was too lazy to talk to Yulin. At this time, the red cloak placed on the shelf seemed to come alive, and it cautiously approached Yulin. Yulin squinted his eyes and glanced at it, remaining calm. Don't be naughty. The Supreme Mage scolded lightly. The cloak fell silent instantly and curled up into a piece of curtain cloth, looking a little depressed. This cloak doesn't seem simple. It actually has its own consciousness. Yulin thought. He noticed on the first day that the cloak seemed to be alive. It is somewhat similar to the Apostle's possessed weapon. Spirit-enchanted weapons are animated by the spirit, not the weapon itself. Spirit-possessed weapons cannot be as flexible as a cloak. By the way, Xiaomei might be able to give it a try. Yulin's burning eyes moved away from the cloak. This kind of autonomous equipment is hard to come by. He became disobedient every minute. It's a pity. Yulin looked at the pot of medicine, and when the Supreme Mage was silent, he suddenly said, "Your heat is not enough." Supreme Mage. Yulin burst out with a burst of hand speed, picked out a few bullets, and casually scattered them around the boiler with the Supreme Mage's confused expression. The mysterious power flows smoothly between several bullets. The Supreme Mage looked at Yulin's mysterious movements and his eyes widened. Heating circuit. Gila. After Yulin casually showed a heating circuit, after a while, the crucible began to boil violently, causing a terrible reaction. Holy fuck! The Supreme Mage didn't have time to say a word. Yulin. The next second, there was a flash of light in the pot. Boom! The Mage Tower exploded. On this day, many residents of Gugu Town saw a brilliant green mushroom cloud in the southwest. Half a minute later. Mage Tower, ruins. Before the collapse of the Mage Tower, the Supreme Mage, who was wrapped in the cloak of the Protector, climbed up from the stone in disgrace and glared at Yulin, who looked innocent not far away. His beard was trembling, and his curly hair had lost its original charm, color and elegance. Honestly, it's not my fault. Let me tell you something from my heart. Yulin was also a little surprised. What about the buildings are indestructible promise? Why can the Supreme Mage blow up his own tower with his own pot? This unscientific. At least it shouldn't be. Yulin had no choice but to cross her arms and prepare to be free falling. You just. Unexpectedly, the Supreme Mage did not teleport Yulin to the end of the island in a fit of rage. Instead, he carefully considered Yulin's action of rubbing bullets just now, rubbing his thumb and index finger together. What spell was used? When Yulin heard this, she thought to herself that you finally took the bait. Suddenly, Yulin straightened her back, exuding the wise and determined aura of a great engineer. Want to learn? I'll teach you. That's all. Yulin moved in with the Supreme Mage. Don't get me wrong, it's a serious kind of cohabitation. Yulin also didn't expect that things would go so smoothly and develop so quickly. They directly skipped the arduous process of building up their favorability points and reached the step of living together. Yulin guessed the beginning and the process, and the ending came a little early. But I have to say, perfect. Say beforehand that I won't help you cheat. The Supreme Mage seemed to know something. When he moved into the empty room in Yilin's house, he said this with a serious face. Yilin looked at the Supreme Mage's door slamming shut, thoughtfully. The next day. The next winter comes. One night, the entire farm was covered in snow, with thousands of miles of ice and snow falling all over the sky. Get up in the morning. The moment Yilin opened the door, the cold wind mixed with snowflakes roared in, giving Yilin the illusion of dreaming back to the snow-capped mountains. 3 months. In the blink of an eye, Yilin spent spring, summer, and autumn in this Nongpo Valley, and came to winter. Time and lifespan seemed to be worthless things to the apostles. The apostle only cares about the present moment. Only when you have lived through the present can you be qualified to talk about the future. Yilin had planned her winter itinerary as early as autumn. He got ready, picked up the pickaxe, and headed straight for the mine. The Supreme Mage, who had been living together for the whole night, was sitting outside Yilin's door with his cloak floating behind his back, his eyes closed and concentrating. This posture seems to be like a god who knows everything and has been waiting for Yilin to go out. But Yilin glanced at his messy curly hair and saw that the Supreme Mage had definitely gotten up a few minutes earlier on a spur-of-the-moment basis. He was not as high-end as he seemed. Young farmer, bring me more arcane energy. In the past, it was always given as a gift. After the relationship was established, the Supreme Mage asked for it directly. What about your face? Do you want more? Do you think that since I live with you, I can do whatever I want without any scruples? Yilin cursed in her heart, but in order to maintain a friendly relationship, Yilin did not object and agreed with a smile. As quickly as possible, Yilin replenished feed for the chickens, ducks, rabbits, pigs, cattle, sheep, and other precious livestock, and there was nothing else to be busy with. There is no need to go to the fields in winter, which seems to be the rest season for farmers. This time, in order to save time, Yilin stopped riding a horse and directly turned on following like a shadow and glide at low altitude. 20 minutes later, Yilin arrives at the mine. Formula. Yilin opened the recipe interface and checked the manufacturing requirements of the gem replicator again. Gem copying machine. Grade rare. Effect: it can perfectly copy gems, but it requires a certain amount of electricity. Recipe: stone 99, gold ingot 5, iridium ingot 2, battery pack 1. Explanation: with it, you will be able to quickly become rich. Who said that farmers can only farm without thinking? A farmer who does not know how to copy gems is not a good farmer. Gold ingots, iridium ingots, these are rare ores. There is no doubt that they must be produced in the mine. Crystal, although it does not belong to this world, is obviously a type of gemstone. None of these farmers' instruments can be converted into cards. It is very likely that, like before, items from this world cannot be easily converted into the real world. But the rewards for the main mission are very clear. As long as you complete the main mission, you can designate a farmer prop as a reward. As long as this gem replicator can be brought back, even if there is only one, it will at least ensure the continuous regeneration of crystals. Taking a step back, as long as I copy enough crystals here, it will be enough for me to use for a while. When Yilin saw the properties of the gem copying machine, she knew that the thing guided by the compass must be this thing. In this way, the mage has become dispensable. You can just pick it up at will without paying too much attention. Thinking of this, Yilin quickly came to the mine elevator and pressed the B50 button. The elevator door opens. The howling cold air came in force. A large pile of shiny blue slimes gathered into a ball and rushed towards Yilin. Thank you to the new leader Love the Immortal Red Devil for your support. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 654. The first 40 floors of the mine are a medium-sized soil layer. But once you get to the 40th floor and go down, but it turned into frozen soil. It's like changing your skin. The low temperature in the cave made Yilin understand that the sudden change in the style of the cave painting in front of her was not an illusion. 1. Oh no, it was a group of frozen slimes, with smiles on their faces and howling and panting, rushing towards Yilin. Not to mention, at first glance, these monsters are a bit cute, and it's hard to bear to take action. Bang 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 bang. Chaos value add 4. Chaos value add 5. Chaos value add 4. There was a slight lag when the thought that I couldn't bear to do it emerged in Yilin's mind. The psychic bullets that had been rubbed in the barrel of the gun were fired at a group of frozen slimes, shooting non-stop. If you guys had been cute for just a second, you wouldn't have died. Frozen slime is similar to other types of slime, and the things it drops are all slime mud. After clearing the monsters in front of him, Yilin stepped on the sticky liquid and walked in the mine. In the darkness, there are small eyes, shrinking, avoiding, panicking, and hesitating. They are scared. Oh, I almost forgot. In the middle and late autumn, in addition to a series of normal farmer activities such as planting fields, harvesting vegetables, frying fish ponds, and gathering wool, Yilin worked hard for only 2 things. 1. Make a bomb. After the bomb formula is unlocked, it can be made on the craftsman's table mainly using coal and iron ore, which is extremely cost-effective. It can not only save spiritual energy points, but also don't have to worry about mine collapse, so Yilin has a lot of reserves. 2. Cook. A whole autumn. I spend most of my time cooking on the stove. Who knows how he survived this autumn, facing the smoke of fireworks. Lucky lunch. Grade rare. Recipe: sea cucumber 1, Mexican pizza 1, blueberry * 1. Effect: greatly restore physical energy, luck add 3, duration, 16 hours. Description: a special and simple meal. Special offer for miners. Grade rare. Recipe: cave radish 2, sugar 1, optional milk * 1. Effect: restore physical energy to a large extent, and increase mining power by 3. Duration: 8 hours. Explanation: never ask what mining power is, it will increase the grip strength of your hands. In the mines, besides weapons, it will be your best companion, even on lonely nights. These recipes are not as simple as just throwing the ingredients into the pot and flipping the lid open. These dishes took Yilin a lot of thought. Taking Lucky Lunch as an example, he must clean and cook sea cucumber on the basis of Mexican pancake. Cooking is also particular. 1 minute longer will make it softer, 1 minute less will make it harder. The sea cucumber must be cooked just right, and then use exquisite knife skills to carve it into the shape of a lucky 5-pointed star and spread it on the pancake. Finally, dry the lanju and grind it carefully into powder, then sprinkle it evenly, and the dish is complete. Lucky Lunch has the crispness of Mexican pizza, the sweetness and moistness of the sea in the crispness, and the fragrance of blueberries. It is a delicious food that is full of praise. Only dishes cooked according to the recipe perfectly will have the temporary buff bonus of luck add 3. Special offer for miners is even more outrageous. The cave radish must be ground into a paste in advance and mixed with optional milk. Start a new stove and cook the sugar into a stringy shape. It's important to note here that overcooked syrup will turn into caramel. Pour the mixture of milk and radish into the 650 hot syrup, stir thoroughly, then pour it into a round grinder, cool and shape, and finally insert a stick to become a lollipop. Shape to finish the work. You can't go wrong with any step, otherwise it won't be a successful dish. Click. Yilin chewed into the miner's special in 1 bite. The sweetness mixed with the milky aroma spread in her mouth, and a soul-cleansing taste came to her forehead. Power is coming. Lucky add 3. Mining power add 3. Buff added. What kind of mining power, Yilin is not sure. Anyway, this attribute is not in the regular panel of the Apostle. But the luck value is actually added. Coupled with the cooking bonus, Yilin's luck value exceeded the 5.2 mark. Yilin was so moved that she had nothing to say. God knows, he has never experienced the feeling of having his luck value exceed 5 points. Click. Load it. 6. Since the monsters didn't come, Yilin took the initiative and rushed into the pile of monsters. The status of the poor slimes was reversed in an instant. They went from being monsters that pounced on the farmer to cute creatures that were pounced on by the farmer. Boom. Laugh. After the gun exploded, bright fireworks burst out from the muzzle. A white light penetrated more than a dozen frozen slimes and finally disappeared into the ice wall of the mine. Yilin was stunned. On the double revolver spirit weapon destruction and redemption, psychic bullet is the most basic attack method, equivalent to a normal attack. But psychic bullets are ordinary, but also a bit special. Special, there is a certain chance of triggering the full penetration effect of one shot through the heart, which can shoot through all creatures in a straight line. Psychic bullet, as a normal attack, also has a probabilistic triggering effect. But Yilin never triggered it. After the luck value increases, this triggering effect finally has a place to be used. Whether it is used to brush monsters or save Shinik energy, it is very useful. This sudden outburst made Yilin so happy that she almost screamed dolphin sound. So cool. Bombs floated out of Yilin's farmer's backpack. Chi chi chi. The fuses were ignited, and the bombs floated toward the dense corners of the mine. Yilin looked at the trembling frozen slime, frost bat, and sand evil spirit in front of her, smiling brightly. Under the dim light, the 2 rows of neat teeth were even more dazzling than the slimes. Next. A time to kill. Yo. The next few days. Yilin was furious and cleared the mine. Work at sunrise and return late at night. Since the mage lived with him, he no longer had to waste time every day on a special trip to the mage tower. Every morning, you only need to run to the sewers, buy the limited amount of void essence and sun essence, stuff them into the mage's trouser pocket, finish the work in a hurry, and leave, hiding his merit and fame. In order to increase efficiency, Yilin even persuaded the mage to help put feed in the chicken coop and cowshed. The mage was not happy at first. He refused to die. The awesome sorcerer supreme, Razmati Stephen Strange, felt that helping out with the farm work was losing his cards. But when Yilin packed the essence that had been accumulated for several days into a sack in one breath and threw it in front of the supreme mage, the proud curly-haired mage finally lowered his head and expressed his determination to complete the task. The favorability of the supreme mage is increasing day by day, and the little things add up. Although after each void essence and sun essence are given out, the increased favorability is only the minimum standard at 1 point, but the supreme mage can't stand a huge amount. Yilin gave too much. In order to get the essence of the circle teleportation technique from the supreme mage, Yilin's whole body could be said to be covered with liver, and her whole body became different. Sometimes, the way the supreme mage looked at Yilin when he got up in the morning, I don't know when, it started to look a little weird, as if he was staring at and taken advantage of, which made Yilin say something was wrong. Ahem, pay attention, pay attention. Yilin looked away and kindly reminded the supreme mage to pay attention to his image, maintain his integrity and not do anything out of the ordinary. The first winter, the 3rd day. Yilin finally reached the 70th floor of the mine. The treasure chest on the 70th floor was finally not touched in advance. It stayed quietly on the 70th floor, waiting for Yilin to come and collect it. It seems that Yilin unknowingly exceeded Yan Cao's progress. Congratulations! In the treasure chest, Yilin opened a piece of equipment. Advanced slingshot. Grade rare. Durability 500/500. Effect: any ammunition ejected from the slingshot will have a ballistic speed at 100%. Description: you can pop out anything that looks like ammunition. Just come and that's it? Yilin's hand shook. Advanced slingshot, turned into a card. On the front of the card is a slingshot. The card art is incomparable to the epic equipment, but it's still eye-catching. Sure enough, the equipment can be taken out. No wonder Yan Cao is so keen on going into the mine. He should have discovered it a long time ago. But if you can't leave alive in the end, what's the use of bringing more equipment out? Yulin thought for a moment in the open space on the 70th floor, then smiled slightly and put the card into the storage space. The first winter, the 6th day. Yulin gnawed on Miner's special, ate Lucky Lunch, and happily brushed Frozen Slime, Frost Bat, Sand Evil Spirit, Ghost, and Skeleton. All the way from the 71st floor, they blasted through the 79th floor. Congratulations to the two races Ghost and Skeleton for joining the Alliance of Persecution by Nongzone Yulin. It's a great joy. The box on the 80th floor is quietly waiting for Yulin's arrival. When he opened it, he saw a pair of red boots. Firewalker boots. Grade rare. Durability 500/500. Effect: equip it and your feet can withstand high temperatures. Of course, wearing it on your hands and walking upside down can also achieve the same effect. Instructions: when wearing it in high temperature environments, please remember to take it off from time to time to let it breathe. Otherwise you may develop severe athlete's foot at your own risk. What an ordinary new piece of equipment. This attribute is in line with the rare level attributes and is not too outrageous. But what does it mean to see such a pair of high temperature resistant equipment in a cold mine? I looked at the time and saw that it was getting late too. Late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. It's time to go home and wash up and sleep. Before leaving, Yulin prepared to take a look at the next floor. Yulin doesn't know when she developed good habits. She is an old miner. He had just climbed down the mine stairs. A gust of dry hot wind roasted Yulin's butt. He could still feel the low temperature of the mine above him, but his lower body seemed to be on a bonfire, roasting to a delicious aroma. This feeling of two worlds of ice and fire is very sour and refreshing. No wonder the 80th floor would provide a pair of high temperature resistant equipment. It turns out that beyond the 80th floor, there is a magma mine. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 655. The first winter, the 8th day. This day is the annual Ice and Snow Festival in Gugu Town. During this grand festival, residents ski, make ice sculptures, build snowmen and ice fish at the venue. Louis dressed up beautifully. But the 5 farmers who inherited their grandfather's inheritance didn't give them much face. It's rare that we don't have to go to the fields, as all 5 farmers are busy working. Except that Wangabi hurriedly arrived for 10 minutes, brought exquisite small gifts to the ladies of Gugu Town, and then left in a hurry. It seemed that besides improving his favorability, there were more important things to be busy with. Everyone else has given up. Louis was so angry afterwards. On the day of the festival, Yulin was in the lava mine, on the 83rd floor, having a great time. This should be the difficulty of this trial. After the 80th level, the monster's strength increases significantly. Moreover, they seemed to have Yulin's eyes on her. They formed groups and launched suicidal general attacks on Yulin. Lava slime will explode as soon as it gets close. Lava bat explodes as soon as it pounces. Lava crab hides under rocks and explodes when knocked. Metal Big Head is extremely hard and spontaneously forms a shield, using its life to resist Yulin's bullets, creating opportunities for other brothers and sisters to counterattack. Shadow Maniac, Shadow Shaman, and Squid Boy formed a long-range unit and launched long-range attacks at Yulin one after another. Yulin's steps were hindered to some extent. Now he has gone very deep into the mine. Yulin didn't dare to use Grip of Annihilation to explode randomly. Although after taking Lucky Lunch, his luck value exceeded the 5.2 mark. Generally speaking, the higher the luck value, the harder it is to trigger the annihilation effect. But what if it is really triggered? Yulin didn't dare to bet that the mine would not collapse. After all, it has already collapsed once. So Yulin could only be honest and use the most basic abilities to kill monsters. The progress of the mine has slowed down. While Yulin is outputting, she also has to take into account the consumption of spiritual energy. Facing the turbulent crowd in front of the monsters with ferocious faces and angry faces, Yulin suddenly had an illusion. It was as if he was the evil boss who was beaten by the brave man of justice. Just when Yulin fired randomly, the location of the death mark on his chest began to tingle and vibrate. Yulin was stunned, and in the hail of bullets, he took a look and saw that it was Yan Cao. After thinking for a moment, Yulin roughly guessed the reason why he came. Forget it, use a big move. Xiaomei. Yo. Rincon. Gaojiamaimi appears happily. Today she wore a new outfit. Wearing a pale robe uniform, the cuffs and armpits of the uniform are particularly wide. As Gaojiamaimi spun around in circles, sparkling waves emanated from her armpits. I don't know whether she forgot to wear shoes or because of the design of her clothes. Xiaomei was barefoot, with disheveled hair, and a white hairband on her forehead. What the hell are you kidding about? Yulin saw that Gaojiamaimi seemed to have unlocked a new skin, with several black lines standing vertically on her forehead. I'm a Cos ghost. Rincon. Gaojiamaimi answered honestly. I don't know where she learned the trendy term Cos from. Does it look good, Rincon? Gaojiamaimi looked at Yulin pitifully, waiting for a score. Good. Yulin sighed softly and put her fingers on her forehead. A cool feeling spread from her forehead to her whole body. Stop messing around and get to work. Yes. Rincon. Xiaomei was affirmed. Her expression was like a child who got a little red flower in kindergarten. Her smile was bright and her face was full of energy. In front of Yulin's eyes, the color of the mine suddenly turned into black and white. The boundless darkness drowns everything. The space of evil thoughts. 10 minutes later. Yulin is done. The floor is covered with materials. Slime mud, diamond, crab, dwarf scroll 3, void essence, sun essence, gold ingot, iron ingot, squid ink, super bomb. Dazzled. Yo. A purple brick exploded. The material he had never seen before aroused Yulin's interest. He didn't bother to reply to the private message and picked up the brick to take a look. Iridium ingot. It finally came out. It's not easy. Yulin happily put away the iridium ingot that was finally exploded. This is the key material for making the gem copying machine. You still need another iridium ingot to make the first gem replicator. Yulin is full of expectations for this instrument. After experiencing the 3 seasons of labor in spring, summer, and autumn, Yulin's mentality became more and more Buddhist, and her heart began to ripple again. After stuffing various materials into the farmer's backpack, it was almost full. Yulin patted his bulging backpack with satisfaction. Then he put the firewalker boots that could withstand high temperatures under his buttocks and sat down. Only these shoes, not Yulin's, could withstand high temperatures. He didn't want anything to happen to his butt. Yulin opened the communication panel. Gaojiamaimi thoughtfully wiped Yulin's sweat with her sleeves. Unfortunately she had no body, just wiped away her loneliness. But when Xiaomei was wiping Yulin's sweat, she shook her white hair back and forth in front of Yulin, which was a bit dazzling. Yan Cao sent a text message. There is only one sentence that gets right to the point. Are you in the mine? Yulin thought for a moment and replied, yes, what's wrong? The next message was sent after half a minute. Did you take the equipment from the 70th floor? Yeah, you want a slingshot? I'll give it to you. No need, Why are you so fast? It's okay. My personal abilities are better suited to avoiding the sight of monsters. Yulin told half the truth. Stealth skills. Yan Cao understood it as soon as he heard it. Well. Okay, I won't ask any more, I understand. I also want to use your experience in the mines, but it seems there is no way. There seemed to be a bit of regret between Yan Cao's words. Beyond the 80th floor, there is a magma mine. Remember to prepare high-temperature resistant equipment in advance. By the way, the monsters here are quite dense. I don't think anyone can move from the front. Yulin looked at the hardly moving monster corpses on the ground and neatly told a white lie. Bona fide. In order to take Yan Cao's feelings into consideration, he would not let him feel that he was too weak. Why is this not kind? Giving people face is a great kindness. Thanks. After Yan Cao sent the last message, there was no more news. It seems that he is immersed in his work again. So progressive. Yulin chuckled, looked at the time, twisted his neck, floated in the air, and put the fire walking boots on his feet again. In fact, he could have stayed on the ground for the entire process, but this would save more spiritual energy, so why not? Xiaomei. Exist. Let's speed up the progress a little bit. Okay, Rincon. Gaijiamimi is very simple. She just wanted to go out more often, change a few more sets of clothes, and see more different scenery. By the way, he repays Yulin's kindness for saving her from the endless abyss, and is very obedient. The 85th floor. Wandering arms. The 86th floor. The space of evil thoughts. The 87th floor. Evil thoughts space. The 89th floor. Evil thoughts space. Bai Xiaoi and Nai Hongzia were furious and left the group chat. Going deep into the mine, Yulin almost always used the equipment ability of Laughing Mask. It's not that Yulin is partial and ignores Nai Hongzia and Bai Xiaoi. It's because the level of the spirit of Laughing Mask is still very low. Taking advantage of the opportunity and using it more can quickly increase the bond between him and Gaijiamimi. After the level of the spirit is increased, can unlock more abilities. Finally, Yulin arrived at the 90th floor. It doesn't seem that difficult. Yulin's whole body was drenched in sweat. Half of them are tired, and half of them are hot. The treasure chest on the 90th floor also revealed a good piece of equipment. Obsidian sword. Grade rare. Durability 10/10. Attribute strength add 0.5. It comes with the effect of cutting the sword energy in two with one sword. Explanation: this sword is extremely sharp. Unfortunately, it is also easily broken. Use it with care and don't accidentally drop it on yourself. Cut in two with one sword, sword energy. The black blade was filled with cold air. Yulin pulled out a piece of hair and let it float on the edge of the sword. The hair was roundly broken into two pieces. After cutting off a hair, the durability also changes from 10 to 9. It's sharp, but what's up with this ridiculous durability? Could it be that I can only chop 10 times? However, this does not prevent it from being a good sword. What a wonderful sword! Although it's a bit brittle, you can throw it to Xiaowu for fun. It's rare that I can get equipment in a trial, so it's nice to go back and give it as a gift. Wait, as soon as Yulin had this idea, she felt a little weird. Has it become a conditioned reflex for me to give gifts in Gugu Town? Yulin muttered secretly and put the obsidian sword away. This trial has yielded a lot of benefits. Yulin spent a lot of spiritual energy in one breath and finally reached the 90th floor. This progress is already very scary. When Yulin returned to the farmer's hut while humming country songs happily, the Supreme Mage's room was still dimly lit. He doesn't seem to be sleeping yet. There was a strange smell in the house. This strange smell made Yulin's entire farm feel bad, as if it had been contaminated by the Supreme Mage. Yilin frowned, didn't say anything more, and fell into a deep sleep, ending a grueling day. The next day. It is also the 9th day of winter in the first year. Yilin picked up the iron pickaxe. Oh no, it's a gold pickaxe now. Not long ago, Yilin had enough gold ingots on hand and went to the blacksmith shop to upgrade her tools. A farmer, carrying a golden hoe, pickaxe, and axe, gave Yilin the illusion that he was showing off his wealth. By the way, during this period, because of the help of the Supreme Mage, Yilin did not have to take care of the livestock on the farm during the winter, and had more time to spend in the mines. This mage is really useful. After Yilin walked down to the cellar to inspect and confirm the progress of brewing in the barrels, she prepared to go straight to the mine. Within these 3 to 5 days, the 100th floor must be taken down. Yilin stuffed a pile of void essence and sun essence into a sack and placed it in front of the door of the Supreme Mage's room. But right now, the door of the Supreme Mage's room suddenly opened. Yilin looked at the weathered and moving face of the Supreme Mage. It was in disrepair over time and his stubble had grown longer. Just look at the Supreme Mage's neck, how can it have anything to do with that arrogant mage? He looked like a savage. So early, Yilin looked slightly stunned. He thought that the Supreme Mage got up early to help with farm work. He was a little moved and comforted. Actually, you don't have to get up so early. After Yilin finished speaking, he turned around and left. The comfort has been put in place, but he is very busy. But the next words of the Supreme Mage made Yilin stop, intending to stop and listen to the Supreme Mage's story. Young farmer, please stay. No. The eyes of the Supreme Mage flashed with wisdom and he smiled slightly. Outsiders. It's the beginning of the month, please give me a monthly pass, please. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 656. Outsider. When Yilin heard this, his eyes narrowed. But then, there was a little more clarity between his eyebrows. I see. Sure enough. It should be so. This is the right style of painting. It's obviously a nightmare-level trial. It wouldn't make sense without some eccentric locals. You wait a moment. Yilin suddenly turned around and ran towards the cellar. The Supreme Mage, with his curly hair trembling slightly, was full of complaints stuck in his throat. But after a while, Yilin ran back from the cellar with a few wine bottles in one hand. Boo! The sweet smell of wine gushes out from the narrow mouth of the bottle and fills the surrounding air. Mead, try it. This is not something too expensive, but it is environmentally friendly, purely natural, and contains no additives. This is a rare treasure in the real world. Now, Yilin has a whole cellar full of fine wine. The Supreme Mage stared at the mead that Yilin forced into his hand, hesitating. Yilin drank a sip down her neck by herself. Because it was winter, drinking this sweet mead was just right. It gave her the pleasure of enjoying the two heavens of ice and fire in the snow. There was also a little sweetness in this pleasure. Yilin looked at the Supreme Mage's twisted expression and guessed what the Supreme Mage was hesitating about. He wiped the mead dripping from the corner of his mouth and said with a smile. Since you've settled in, today is considered a welcome ceremony, not a gift, so feel free to drink. The implication is that you don't need to give me any favor points. Well. The Supreme Mage tilted his neck and took a sip. This is how men are, with wine, there are stories. Yilin spent a whole summer and autumn trying to pry open the Supreme Mage's mouth. He couldn't let this old boy escape today. Even if you drink until you vomit, you still have to vomit all the information in your stomach before talking about it. Two grown men were sitting in the snow, you taking a sip and I taking a sip, drinking sweet mead. The mage's chat box finally opened up. Do you know who I am? Hiccup. Yilin echoed, the Supreme Mage, Rasmati Stephen Strange. Haha, yes, the Supreme Mage, I am the unique Supreme Mage, Stephen Strange. Brother Russ chuckled and finished the bottle quickly. Yulin didn't waste any time, opened another bottle and forced it into Brother Lassie's hand. After getting a little drunk, Brother Russ also refused to accept anyone who came. His smile became thicker and thicker, and he became more and more arrogant. Hey, Hiccup, let me tell you a secret. Yulin pricked up her ears. I, the Supreme Mage, am an outsider just like you. In fact, we don't belong to this world. What? Yulin didn't expect that the mage's casual revelation would reveal a shocking secret. His expression was slightly startled, but he did not dare to interrupt or speak. He would wait until the Supreme Mage poured out the secrets that needed to be said. Haha, it's really ridiculous. I travel through the multiverse, travel in the river of time and space, I see into the past and the future, I can reverse time and space, but when I came here many years ago, I was trapped in this ghost place. Hiccup, you know, I used to be the mainstay of a superhero organization. There was a green-skinned giant, a playboy who liked to wear armor, an American but who always liked to play with shields, and I'm sorry, it's been too long and I forgot. We once fought against a purple potato star master. By the way, they are a bit similar to the potatoes you planted in the field some time ago. The purple potato collected something called infinite gems. After collecting them all, with a snap of your fingers and a snap, you can easily wipe out half of all life. Guess what happened in the end? At the end, I gave the playboy enough hints. I raised a finger, meaning to tell him that he could just pick off one of the 6 gems. Unexpectedly, that playboy actually snapped his fingers, and then, burped. Speaking of this paragraph, although the curly-haired mage's expression was smiling drunkenly, there was a bit of sadness and nostalgia in his eyes. Later, I resigned. As the last Supreme Mage, I traveled in the vast multidimensional time and space. Hiccup, brother, you are a little drunk. You used to be so indifferent to me, but now you call me brother, how can you not take advantage of me? Yulin looked at the empty wine bottles lying on the ground with a strange expression. This curly-haired mage is very good at drinking. He drank 7 or 8 bottles in just one turn, and he didn't drink much Nongfu Mountain spring water. But from the drunken words of the Supreme Mage, Yulin probably understood. Combined with the bat pattern he saw in Chiao's supermarket not long ago, Yulin slowly sorted out the relationship between the Supreme Mage, Green, and Trial. The tower, possessing some kind of power, will send them registered as apostles to each trial field. But these trial grounds are not temporary creations. But it really exists in a certain way, in a corner that Yulin can't understand. Multiverse. This is what the Supreme Mage calls these independent trial worlds. In other words, the Supreme Mage had the ability to travel independently through these trial worlds before, but he was not an apostle. His ability to travel does not depend on the tower or his identity as an apostle. It is even possible that he comes from another world that Yulin is unfamiliar with. While traveling through time, he accidentally came to this small town, but for some reason, he was trapped here. So he longs for the weak arcane energy contained in those void essence and sun essence. For what? To leave here? As for why the Supreme Mage is trapped here, Yulin also roughly guessed it. Because, Green. Nongpo Valley and Greentown are all Green's territory. Behind the scenes, there is Green's shadow. I just don't know if this is Green's dream world, or if there is an incarnation of Green somewhere in the Nongpo Valley. Green is not dead after all. In the town of Green, when Yulin finally killed that Green, a vague speculation arose. The Green he killed was not the real Green. The real Green is from a higher dimensional perspective, overlooking all living beings and jumping around like clowns. The Supreme Mage was almost drunk. Yulin took advantage of him before he fell and quickly asked. So, this is the reason why you collect void essence and sun essence. Yes, hiccup. The supreme mage exhaled a strong smell of alcohol, his eyes were getting more and more strange, and he was confused and confused. My spells need to draw energy from the dimensional rift in order to cast a spell. But God knows what this ghost place is like. Wherever I am in the multiverse, even I can't sense any energy from the dimensional rift in this world. The supreme mage drank and cursed, damn Gugu Town. After drinking for a while, he was still cursing, damn Nongpo Valley. Okay, okay, I understand. Yilin waved her hand to stop the supreme mage's complaint. You want me to help you? Your skills, the supreme mage finally expressed his desire. You are not the only one cursed by knowledge, and neither is he. I believe that only knowledge from outside, can let me leave here. Get out of this damn place. I see. It echoes, everything echoes. The Supreme Master is proud and arrogant. Even if others work hard to increase his favorability, they may not be able to unlock this conversation. What finally made the Supreme Mage open his heart was not Yilin's charm, nor Yilin's various gifts, nor the 7 or 8 bottles of mead he drank, but Yilin's experience in the world of Auranos. The crystal pattern technique learned through hard work. This is a new knowledge that makes the Supreme Mage feel strange, and it is also a new technology. It is precisely because of knowledge that the Supreme Mage finally said such drunken words to Yilin. When the Supreme Mage finished drinking the 9th bottle and prepared to drink the 10th bottle, plop! He fell. No matter how awesome you are still a human being. Yilin looked at the Supreme Mage, who fell on the ground, soundly asleep and as breathless as an ox. He could only shake his head and sigh, hold the Supreme Mage's leg with one hand, drag him back to the room, throw him on the bedboard, and that's it. The drunken Supreme Mage had just been placed. His cloak was rolled up silently and stopped in front of Yilin. The slightly curled collar conveyed a feeling of curiosity and doubt. "Watch your master," Yilin said to the red cloak with a smile. The cloak rolled up into an OK shape. Yilin took a few steps and seemed to remember something. She suddenly stopped, turned around, and asked tentatively, "How about you get along with me from now on? I will definitely find you a pretty wife in a pink cloak." The red cloak squeaked, and the long skirt became stiff. Seemingly hesitating, after a few seconds, Mr. Cloak slowly rolled out a middle finger. It was already noon after the Supreme Mage had settled down. After wasting a whole morning, Yilin was too lazy to do anything today. He went to town for a walk. On the roadside of Gugu Town, Vincent, Jas, and other children were happily building snowmen. Laolu hurried to the outskirts. The dog was looking around, and he was holding a bottle of truffle oil in his hand. Dr. Harvey was heading to the door of the clinic and hung up an advertisement saying winter cold medicines are 20% off. Leah is an innocent girl who lives next to Marnie's farm. She is sketching by the river in Gugu Town, looking at the frozen river. Everything was so peaceful. Yilin stepped on the first snow. If he hadn't just had a drink with the Supreme Mage and learned more secrets, it would be difficult for him to connect the peaceful scene in front of him with the cruel nightmare-level trial. Sure enough, people's trials cannot be generalized. Maybe this is the normal way of trials. Yilin sighed as she passed Papier's grocery store. During this period, due to the opening of Kiajia supermarket and the capital squeeze from rivals, the Papier grocery store was deserted and the atmosphere was withered. Pippa shook his head in distress and despondency, looking very haggard. As I was passing by, I don't know if it was a coincidence, but there was a noise coming from the kitchen. The voices seemed to be those of Caroline and her daughter Abigail. "Abigail, stop teaching me how to live." Caroline, "Hey, that's it? We let you live here for free until graduation, and you're still ungrateful." Abigail, "Don't try to make me feel guilty. I'm grateful to you and Dad for helping me, but trying to dress me the way you do is ridiculous and I won't give in, Mom." Caroline, "You're right, I'm sorry. Side mission? The experienced, keen, witty, and intelligent senior, Yulin, smells the mission. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 657. Mr. Lin is kind and helpful. So he followed. Just when they met, purple-haired Abigail ran out crying. It made you laugh. Caroline chased her out, and happened to see Yulin, who was hesitating to go in outside the door. She bowed, a hint of fatigue appearing on her beautiful face. Well, it's really hard to take care of naughty children. Yulin held a few seconds of silence for Caroline. Being a parent is not easy. Fortunately, he is still single. Fortunately, he is not a father yet and has no plans to have children. Yulin had such a strange idea inexplicably. What's going on? Yulin was idle anyway, taking advantage of the fact that the Supreme Mage hadn't woken up and was too lazy to go down the mines. It was a rare day off to dig here and there, maybe there would be some unexpected gains. Alas, Caroline sighed, I don't know who that child looks like. He talks nonsense all day long. He said she saw a ghost on the road last night, saying there was someone floating in the sky. Yulin thought carefully about her course of action last night. He should not be seen. That has nothing to do with him. Yulin felt relieved. Seeing that Yulin was listening attentively, Caroline was moved and continued to complain, let's just tell her, don't go to the cemetery all day long, don't hang out with Robin Sebastian all day long, play rock and roll, and don't play games. She dyes her hair purple all day long. She even recently said she wanted to learn how to play the flute, which made us so angry. This. We told her not to just play all day, study hard, and one day she can leave this place. Then she started to quarrel with us. After Caroline finished speaking, Yulin lowered his head and thought about it. He noticed that no side quests popped up. So Yulin asked tentatively, shall help you persuade? Okay. Thank you. Yulin. After the favorability level increased, Caroline called Yulin by her first name, and no one felt embarrassed. Poor parents. Yulin, who had nothing to do, walked around, passed by the blacksmith shop, cracked a few Easter eggs, and bought a bunch of candied haws at a roadside stall. After licking them, he finally found the sad figure sitting beside the cemetery in the cemetery. Abigail. He was not good at comforting children. What he is best at is giving gifts. So he dug into the farmer's backpack, took out a farmer's lunch, and stuffed it in front of Abigail. It will bring you luck. Abigail's favorability add 5. What a wonderful comfort, but I didn't expect it to turn into my own shedding of wool. Yulin felt helpless, this was not his intention. But after accepting Yulin's gift, Abigail finally smiled. She started talking to Yulin, I sometimes wonder whether I am their biological child. I always feel that my worldview, outlook on life, and outlook on love are incompatible with theirs. Probably. In fact, Yulin was not sure. You said that Pippa's hair is brown, Caroline's hair is green, and Abigail's hair is purple. It's hard to believe it's biological. Maybe, this is a setting? Etc. Yulin suddenly remembered Caroline's words. Abigail likes to dye her hair. Yulin repeated Caroline's words, and finally comforted, actually, they are also worried about you, but everyone can only make the decision in their own life. Just do what you like. You really have a dream, so don't worry about it. Them. Abigail gave Yulin a thumbs up and finally smiled. She finished the farmer's lunch made by Yulin in 3 mouthfuls, wiping her mouth with lingering thoughts. Before leaving, Abigail suddenly turned around and said doubtfully, by the way, I remember, I haven't dyed my hair for a long time. My mother may have misremembered someone else's child. Yulin slowly typed a question mark. The ending is good in the end. Yulin watched with relief as Abigail returned home obediently. Caroline, Pippa, and Abigail, a family of 3, embraced each other passionately in the snow, and the scene was beautiful. The winter sunset comes very early. At about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun sets on the horizon and disappears on the other side of the mountains. The vast snowy field reflects the remaining light, making the surrounding area still dim and bright as in the early morning. Yulin estimated that it was almost time for the Supreme Mage to wake up, so she rubbed her palms together, feeling a little excited. Before returning, Yulin quietly went to other people's farms for a walk. Anyway, it's the way to go. It's more like passing through the wilderness, passing rivers and lakes, and then crossing the mountains and arriving at the canyon. Really smooth sailing. Yulin discovered that the other 4 farmers were not on his farm. Could they all be working in the mines? Yulin remembered the question Yan Cao asked herself nervously not long ago. A bolder idea came to his mind. Could it be that they are forming a team to go into the mine? Fight against yourself? Hee. Don't tell me, it's really possible. Yulin shook her head and smiled, returning to her farm. Because the Supreme Mage had been drunk all day, Yulin could only take over the farm work of the Supreme Mage. Before entering the house, she tidied up the chicken coop and cowshed, and took a bunch of feed from the towering granary and placed it in each room. Put them in the feed trough of the chicken coop and cowshed. Just in time. In chicken coop number 2, among a group of Jills, Yulin spotted a figure that was particularly dark and unsociable. That's a little black-boned chicken. Yulin's expression slightly condensed. Looks like the recipe could be updated. He subconsciously wiped the non-existent saliva from the corner of his mouth and grabbed the new little black chicken to take a look. The feathers on the surface of the silky chicken's body are covered with little shimmering stars. The eyes of the silky chicken are different from other chickens in that they are actually white. While it was a bit weird, Yulin also felt that this fighting black chicken was particularly cool. Void chicken. It really hatched. The little black chicken struggled in Yulin's clutches. Yulin happily teased him for a while, and briefly developed a good relationship with the new little black chicken. Next comes an even more troublesome thing. Each chicken coop has an upper limit on the amount of livestock it can accommodate. The newly hatched void chicken occupies a precious spot. So, a certain fattened chicken tonight. What is the proper cooking method? Yulin felt a headache. The Sorcerer Supreme wakes up. The hangover. When he woke up, he was wrapped in a red cloak and took the shape of a mummy. The Protector's cloak was afraid that his master would freeze to death in the winter, so he came up with this trick. It smells so good. The tangy fragrance stimulated the food cells hidden in the Supreme Mage's body, causing his stomach to make a strange growling sound. Woke up. Yulin was in the kitchen, wearing a black apron, and in front of her was a pot of delicious food with a tight lid. The fragrance that the Supreme Mage smelled was the fragrance leaking from the gaps around the pot lid. What are you? As soon as the Supreme Mage saw Yulin messing around in the kitchen, he immediately straightened his face. Our hungry mage didn't want to look hungry, but after floating in the living room for a while with the power of his cloak, he still couldn't resist the temptation of delicious food. The Supreme Mage floated behind Yulin with a straight face to see what Yulin was cooking. It was so delicious. Yulin smiled slightly. What a coincidence you woke up. The main ingredients are young and mature hens that have been raised on pure hay for 2 seasons and exercised outside every day to build strong muscles. Use top quality sea cucumber, salmon, and lobster meat in advance to make a sweet and fresh stock, and filter out the residue. Add a little bit of fine maple sugar, hazelnut powder, and pepper to the soup stock. Heat the chicken in a pot of cold water to quench the blood, then cut it into pieces with a sharp knife and let it cool for later use. Add morels, chanterelles, common mushrooms, blue mushrooms and other ingredients, and stew them together with a slow fire. It's almost ready. Yulin simply told the recipe. This is not learned from somewhere. but he created it himself. During this time on the farm, Yulin had a peaceful mind. Apart from farming, mining, raising pigs and chickens, the rest of the time was spent on cooking. It can be said that among the 5 farmers, no one knows cooking better than Yulin. He is a cooking expert among the new generation of farmers. Although top quality ingredients often only require simple cooking methods. But simplicity is better than simplicity, and complexity is wonderful. Each has its own merits. The complex field of cooking cannot be covered in a general sentence. Goo goo goo. Ka dash. In the pot, an amazing power is brewing. Along with the fragrant aroma, the pot lid couldn't hold it down and kept shaking. Huh. Yulin subconsciously took a step back. It's obviously just ordinary ingredients and dishes, so it won't explode, right? The Supreme Mage doesn't know much about Yulin. He knew that the explosion in the Mage Tower was caused by overheating, which caused the alchemy materials in the crucible to become unstable. It's just food, will it explode? He didn't think about it at all. Yulin suddenly took a step back, which made the Supreme Mage feel that Yulin was making a fuss. He took a step closer to the boiler, deliberately sullen, and said the reason why he wanted to eat, as the Supreme Mage, when I could still absorb the energy of the dimensional rift, I almost didn't need to take in food. But, now I can't help it. Yulin ignored the arrogant mage who spoke out about his integrity. He observed it for several seconds and found that there seemed to be something hidden in the pot. It was just shaking, not exploding. Yulin carefully set up an invisible psychic shield in front of her as a defense. Immediately afterwards, Yulin opened the lid of the pot in one go. Clang! A stream of colorful light rose into the sky. Beside the pot, Yulin and the Supreme Mage were stunned by the exaggerated special effects of this dish. Ding! Yulin froze on the spot, still holding the pot lid with one hand, and heard a crisp sound clearly in her ears. Congratulations to Apostle 1010 for his unremitting efforts, amazing perseverance, understanding, and creation with heart, and going through hardships to create a cooking method that touches the soul. Congratulations to Apostle 1010 for understanding the unknown enhancement, grade S-. Please ask Apostle 1010 to name this enhancement. Am I stupid? The corners of Yulin's mouth twitched slightly, and she was screaming in her heart. This is an epiphany. He just made a dish according to his own ideas. How did you become enlightened? It was actually rated as S-level enhancement. The special effects are quite scary. The lid of the pot clicked when I lifted it, as if I was afraid that others wouldn't know how awesome this dish was. This sudden shock, oh no, surprise, made Yulin stay in place for a full 10 seconds. It wasn't until the man in the cloak behind the Supreme Mage gently rolled up a corner and poked Yulin's back that Yulin came back to her senses. Call. They come, the security. It's not a loss anyway. Too many skills don't overwhelm the body. Since this is a dish that touches the soul. Yulin happily served a bowl of hot chicken soup for the soul to the Supreme Mage and named the new enhancement in her heart with a smile. Soul Cooking Technique. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 658. After meal. Eat and drink enough. Not a drop of soup was left in the pot. In front of the Supreme Mage, chicken bones were piled on the ground. Yulin waved her hand. The pile of chicken bones floated out of thin air and neatly formed the shape of gill number 1 in mid-air. They flapped their wings and then fell into the trash can not far away. Way to go, Jill 1. Since Yulin had made up his mind to exchange knowledge with the Supreme Mage, he stopped pretending and showed off his abilities. Oh! The Supreme Mage found a bamboo stick from somewhere, picked his teeth, burped, exhaled the smell of alcohol, and his cloudy eyes lit up slightly. Only then did Yulin notice that the hands of the Supreme Mage were covered with scars, and the hands used to pick teeth were even trembling slightly, as if they were suffering from Parkinson's disease in the elderly. Yulin was very suspicious as to why such a person could be called the Supreme Mage. But Yulin has experienced his special skill circle teleportation technique and cannot fake it. Not long ago, Yulin realized a new enhancement, the soul cooking technique. He took a brief look at the properties and description of soul cooking technique, and then put it behind him for the time being. Let's deal with the Supreme Mage first. The Supreme Mage looked at Yulin with a bit of hesitation on his face. Old God Yulin was there, looking like I'm not in a hurry during the long night. After a few minutes, the Supreme Mage couldn't help but speak, "Chicken soup, it tastes good." He first gave Yulin a thumbs up for her cooking skills. It's okay, it's okay." Yulin answered modestly. The atmosphere between the two grown men was awkward for a while. The Supreme Mage couldn't help but say, "That day when you..." As he said that, he didn't know how to describe the skills Yulin showed. He could only rub his fingers, hoping that Yulin could understand and remember the promise made that day. "You first," Yulin kindly reminded, "you promised to give me what I want." "Promise, promise. Then take a shower and go to bed." When Yulin saw that the Supreme Mage seemed to have regrets, he shrugged and stood up to prepare for sleep. Anyway, he had already obtained the formula of the gem copying machine, and it was only a matter of time before he could copy the crystal. Adeng said that he could definitely learn that skill. Even without the guidance of the Supreme Mage, Yulin believed that if he continued to study, he would be able to reach the state of Adeng. It was just a matter of taking more steps on dry roads or taking fewer detours. All right. The Supreme Mage finally made up his mind. He seemed really hungry for knowledge. Especially, the knowledge of outsiders. Yulin had grasped the weakness of the Supreme Mage. The Supreme Master spoke the truth after drinking and told all his troubles. You can't blame Yulin for taking advantage of others' danger, he brought it to his door himself. He once crossed mountains and seas of people, and traveled through multiple worlds, but he was trapped here. Yulin could not have imagined how much the Supreme Mage wanted to leave this hellish place. This is his weakness. Not to mention, Yulin was not in a hurry at all. When Yulin saw that the Supreme Mage had compromised, he just raised his butt a centimeter and immediately sat back down. The Sorcerer Supreme took a deep breath. He began to speak in a magnetic voice. The power I use is magic. My teacher told me that the language of magic is as old as human civilization. And people who use this power are called mages. Yulin nodded. Show understanding. Seeing Yulin's eagerness to learn and humility, the Supreme Mage nodded secretly. As he recalled the passing of his mentor, a hint of imperceptible sadness flashed in his eyes, and he continued. The ancient mages called the language of magic spells. Understand. Now that the Supreme Master has started to teach, he just breaks the rules and explains step by step. He is afraid that Yulin's qualifications are dull and he will let him explain it a second time. Language, spell. The Supreme Mage shook his head. He stretched out his hands, with two fingers slightly bent and the other fingers straightened, making an uncomplicated gesture. In an instant, orange light gathered between the fingers of the Supreme Mage, forming a standard circle in front of him. When the Supreme Mage exerted his power, it seemed that Parkinson's disease was instantly cured, his hands stopped shaking, and his whole person exuded a mysterious aura. This is the language of magic. But you didn't say anything. The language of magic is not really reflected in language, the Supreme Mage explained. The language spoken with the mouth is just one of the forms of expression. Your movements, your gestures, your inner thoughts, your emotions, everything, can form a spell. As he spoke, the Supreme Mage smiled slightly, and the pattern suddenly appeared, and another square appeared around the circle. Square and circle intertwined in the void in front of Yilin. The Supreme Mage shook again. In the boundary between the square and the circle, complex textures emerged, with countless obscure words carved in the middle. The radiant formation looks a bit similar to Yilin's crystal pattern technique at first glance. But Yilin, who has rich experience in crystal pattern art, could tell at a glance that the magic of the Supreme Mage was completely different from the crystal pattern art. This cannot be said to be better or worse. Yilin cannot distinguish what the Supreme Mage has shown so far, and Yilin also clearly realizes that she has not yet reached the highest level of crystal pattern art. But he was very sure that crystal patterning and magic were not the same system strengthening direction at all. Quite the opposite. Quite different. Very different. Understand, the Supreme Mage sighed softly when he saw Yilin lowering his head and frowning, with an expression that was difficult to understand. He suddenly remembered the scene when the Ancient One taught him, secretly shook his head, and lamented that people's understanding ability cannot be generalized. Oh, I understood the secret after just one glance. You, tut tut tut. The Supreme Mage did not hide his disdain, gave himself a hand, shook his head and sighed. Seeing that Yilin was still meditating, the Supreme Mage kindly changed his explanation. Magic, spell, mage, well, if these words are against your thinking mode, then we can change it to another word dash. Program. Yilin suddenly clapped his hands. If you combine the nonsense you are talking with my knowledge, it should not be difficult to understand. The magic language you are talking about is like what I call circuit and node, which is more appropriate. Should be said to be a program. By the way, do you know what a program is? Your magic is equivalent to a program. A fixed combination of codes can evolve into different programs and powers. The Supreme Mage was stunned. As soon as Yilin saw the confused expression on the Supreme Mage's face, he knew that his example was correct. So he picked at the dead skin on his forehead and said with a smile, if you change your thinking, it will not be difficult to understand. It is nothing more than learning the core logic of your magic language, and then rearranging and combining it. This time, the Supreme Mage frowned and was speechless. The dimensional energy you are talking about should be the CPU needed to run this program. Well, no, to be precise, it should be an external machine, the hardware is just needed, or, a power supply. The Sorcerer Supreme opened his mouth. After Yilin drew inferences and figured out the core logical principles, she quickly entered scholar mode and communicated with the Supreme Mage as an honorary engineer. He waved, and an ordinary fruit knife floated into Yilin's hand from the kitchen shelf. Yilin used a fruit knife to carefully draw horizontal and vertical lines on the floor. That's the circuit. The way the lines are constructed is the equivalent of what you would call a spell. The intersections between circuits are nodes. The location and size of the nodes, and the thickness of the loop lines are all very particular. The Supreme Mage frowned in thought. He fell from the sky. He didn't care about pretending anymore and sat down opposite Yilin eagerly, listening carefully to Yilin's explanation. Yilin followed the same pattern again and carved a subtly different circuit not far away. This is the projection circuit. Yilin casually placed the fruit knife on the left loop. He pulled out several defective crystals. Simply drop it in. Light flows. In the circuit on the right, another identical fruit knife appeared. Oh! How amazing! The Supreme Mage's eyes widened and he exclaimed. His exclamation was similar to Yilin's. I believe that the Supreme Mage also realized that the crystal pattern technique performed by Yilin was another system that had a similar construction logic to his magic, but was completely different. In his way, he can do it. What actually amazed him was that there was such a wonderful energy operation mode in the world. Why do you call them arcane energies? Just to make it easier for you to understand, you can call it magic power if you like. Where's the energy of your crystal pattern? Where is the source of energy? This crystal is energy. What if your magic doesn't have the arcane energy you call it? Longze. Where did you get this crystal? It was given by someone else. By the way, how long have you been staying here? 20 years. What does your world look like? I don't know if I can say. The two asked and answered questions, and time passed quickly between the exchanges between the two scholars. Before I knew it, it was already late at night. Feeling dizzy, Yilin turned her head with difficulty and looked at the clock on the wall. She saw that there was still 1 minute left until 2 o'clock in the evening. Oops. Without saying a word, Yilin floated up and rushed towards her bed. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that the Supreme Mage, who had been chatting with gleaming eyes just now, suddenly became drowsy and his eyelids drooped a few seconds before 2 o'clock in the morning. In a blink of an eye. Plop! The Supreme Mage fell asleep on the ground. Before falling asleep, Yilin finally understood why this place was covered with the shadow of that person, green. The next day. 6 o'clock in the morning. Yilin jumped up from the bed with a bang. He suddenly remembered something. Last night. He forgot to take a shower. Hiss. Yilin ran to the bathroom as quickly as possible and washed herself up. As he wiped his hair and walked out of the bathroom, the Supreme Mage yawned and floated out of the room, rolled up in his red cloak. Why did I suddenly fall asleep last night? Yilin squinted her eyes and looked at the sleepy Supreme Mage. He suddenly understood why the sorcerer, who claimed to be very powerful, was trapped in this world. In general. It's just that it's still far away. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 659. Human power is limited. Early in the morning, the two of them sat face to face in the restaurant. The Supreme Mage ate the nutritious breakfast cooked by Yilin with a complicated expression, and took the time to start educating. We mages, most of the energy needed to cast spells is drawn from dimensional rifts. The fundamental source of this energy is some terrifying existence in the dimensional rift. Yilin tried to fry a poached egg using soul cooking technique this morning. That poached egg actually has attributes and can be turned into a card. Poached egg that has lost its soul. Grade rough. Effect: it has a thirst effect, lasting 1 minute. Explanation: what does it mean? It means you were distracted while frying eggs. Yilin was speechless. It turns out that this is the essence of soul cooking. It really becomes a card. Yilin always felt weird crushing the card and turning it into food, then stuffing it into her mouth. While eating breakfast, Yilin listened to the talk of the Supreme Mage. Occasionally Yilin would ask, "Those rift creatures you mentioned, did you sign a contract by borrowing their energy?" Something like, "Are you their summoned beast, pet, mistress, etc." The Supreme Mage was talking with great joy, but Yilin's words almost made the poor, arrogant, and noble Supreme Mage choke to death with a piece of sausage stuffed into his mouth. He finally regained his breath and stared at Yilin resentfully. The Supreme Mage wanted to refute, but he seemed unable to use other more accurate terms to explain his relationship with those beings. Anyway, now he can't feel those big guys anymore. He couldn't refute anything Yilin said. In short, the energy I borrowed is just a drop of water in the vast ocean to them. It is also like a grain of sand in the vast desert. They don't care about this small loss. I understand, it turned out to be stealing, Yilin suddenly realized. After Yilin had eaten and drank enough, she picked up the shiny golden pickaxe and walked out. How could you? The Supreme Mage originally thought that he would continue to have a long chat with Yilin until dawn. But Yilin's posture is obviously preparing to go into the mine. Do you think I'm idle? I'm very busy. Yilin walked out slowly, completely ignoring the resentful gaze of the Supreme Mage, and smiled. If you really want to seize the time, take care of those chickens, ducks, and rabbits in my territory. I'll make up for the feed for the pigs, cows, and sheep, and if I have time, I'll chop wood by the way. By the way, I'll keep the axe in my room. The face of the Supreme Mage instantly darkened. Yulin did not deliberately whet the appetite of the Supreme Mage. He is really busy. Even in the exchange with the Supreme Mage, Yulin gained many novel experiences. But he did not forget the purpose of coming to this world. He is different from the Sorcerer Supreme. Yulin has a mission. The Supreme Mage can be trapped here and unable to leave, but Yulin cannot. The main mission is the sword of Damaris hanging over the Apostle's head. Of course, this sword doesn't pose much of a threat to Yulin. What really made Yulin feel threatened was Green. That mysterious existence, even the Supreme Mage who claims to be able to travel freely through multiple worlds, is trapped here. The Supreme Mage had no idea why he suddenly fell asleep last night. Yulin speculated that in the world he was currently in, although Green did not appear, the main mission did not say that he would face Green. But there is Green's shadow everywhere in this world. He is everywhere. After leaving the chores on the farm to the Supreme Mage, Yulin ignored the vast psychological shadow of the poor Supreme Mage. Without saying a word, he arrived at the mine in the shortest possible time. Ding! The elevator goes directly to floor B90. Yulin now finally understands why Yan Cao is so keen on the liver mine. The treasure chest in the mine is a one-time reward. Rewards specially prepared for brave adventurers. From the advanced slingshot on the 70th floor, firewalker boots on the 80th floor, and obsidian sword on the 90th floor, everyone can tell that the treasure chest rewards for a given level of the mine are one-time. And it is equipment that can bring you out of the trial world. With such a generous reward, it would be a shame to be careless. To take a step back, even if Yulin can't use these equipments, she can just throw them into the guild warehouse and rent them out. His 100 Scarlet Butcher knives can be said to be Yulin's stable source of DP income. This is no joke. If you are not a family member, you don't know how valuable firewood is, and if you are not the president of the world's #1 guild, no one knows how heavy the pressure is on Yulin's shoulders. Alas, he is the only one in the world who can understand this kind of distress. After all, there is only one World First Guild in the whole world. I don't know what the reward will be later. The monsters behind are getting denser and denser. I don't know if there is a circle of friends among monsters. As soon as Yulin appeared, the monsters reacted as if they were facing an enemy that would never die for 9 heavens and 10 earths for 3 lives and 7 generations, and collectively launched a self-destructive attack on Yulin. There are more monsters than mines, it's outrageous. Although Yulin is an extraordinary apostle, the scene in a small magma mine cave with a black mass of monsters rushing towards him is still very shocking. This feeling, this scene. Yulin once again had an illusion. It's as if these monsters are a team of brave warriors with complete equipment to fight the boss. Tanks, DPS, and rangers are all in place to fight the big boss to the death. Yulin did not waste time for the sake of efficiency. Lucky lunch. Special offer for miners. 3 spirits, Gaia Kinmei, Bai Xiaoi, and Nai Hongxiu, appeared together. Wandering arms. The space of evil thoughts. Kill. Yulin finally gradually realized the pressure that Yan Cao said. The slightly different thing is that the place where Yan Cao felt the pressure was around the 60th floor. Yulin is on the 90th floor. It is indeed a little stressful. But not much. Although Yulin has the ability to heal herself, because she hasn't been injured for a long time, Yulin has almost forgotten that her physical fitness and wounds can heal on their own. But Yulin didn't want to taste the feeling of being bombed, so she dodged and snaked around in the suicidal attacks of a group of monsters. He has always been the only one to bomb others, and being bombed by others was not part of Yulin's plan. Yulin is naturally happy to spawn monsters. In addition to being able to use various materials, Yulin can also use a lot of chaos points. Even though the chaos value of these monsters is generally not high, the demand for Yulin's current Apocalypse module skill upgrade is only moderate. But if you add up a little, it's also a considerable income. This wave is definitely not a loss. By the way, the explosion rate of iridium ingots is very low. Yulin has never seen one since she exploded one on the first day. This was after he had eaten lucky lunch and his luck value was as high as 5.2. One can imagine how deceptive the explosion rate of this iridium ingot was. That's too much. Go at sunrise and return at sunset. During these days, Yulin went to the mines during the day and held candlelight conversations with the Supreme Master at night until late at night. The days are ordinary and boring. The poor mage took the time to return to his former home, which is now the ruins of the Mage Tower. He carefully rescued his books that had not been blown up and temporarily placed them on the bookshelf of Yulin's home. Wait a minute, the Supreme Mage looked at the empty bookshelf with a puzzled expression. Why is your bookshelf empty? Because I don't have a book. Yulin was familiar with soul cooking technique at the time and answered casually. But you don't have books, why do you want to buy a bookshelf? Isn't it already there? Yulin was busy cooking at that time and did not look back, but he could imagine how wonderful the Supreme Mage's expression was at that moment. But now it is meaningless to delve deeper. The Supreme Master silently suppressed the bitterness in his heart to the bottom of his anus. The Sorcerer Supreme is the master of magic. Yulin is the great engineer. They are all experts in their respective fields. For them, it is equivalent to starting from scratch and learning another technology. But it's not like starting from scratch, because the two disciplines have similar points, but have completely different styles. Both Yulin and the Supreme Mage gradually became addicted to each other's subjects and could not extricate themselves. Yulin also had no reservations about the Supreme Mage. In his view, the ancient practice of teaching people to hold back was a very boring behavior. Either teach or don't teach. What does it mean to hold back? The fun of inheritance lies in cultivation. Yulin feels that it is very interesting to turn a mage who talks about spells and incantations into an engineer who draws pictures and calculates formulas all day long. In the process of teaching the crystal pattern technique to the Supreme Mage, Yulin seemed to feel how Adeng felt when he taught him carefully in the Great Engineer Tower. Yulin no longer needs to worry about brushing Void Essence and Sun Essence to give to the Supreme Mage. In his words, it seems that as long as the crystal pattern technique is mastered, these insignificant arcane energies will no longer be important. The two became a teacher and friend. On the 14th day of winter, Yulin finally reached the 100th floor of the mine. On the 100th floor, according to the convention of Kugutown, there was still an intact treasure box lying there. Yulin is really not in a hurry about the progress of the mine. Yulin is very clear about the strength of monsters from the 90th floor onwards. This is not an RPG game where you can be resurrected after death. The apostles cherish their lives and work step by step. Generally speaking, even if they are forming a team to clear the mines, they cannot fight with their lives. In terms of progress, it is impossible to surpass him. Yulin opened the treasure box with a smile. Inside lay a star-shaped fruit. This fruit is somewhat similar to star fruit. But it's purple. With anticipation, Yulin held the fruit in her hands. The next second, the properties of the fruit appeared before Yulin's eyes. Fruit of star. Level epic. Effect: its taste will make you have endless aftertaste and will be unforgettable for a lifetime. Description: a mysterious fruit that gives power to those who eat it. It has a dream-like flavor, it leaves a very strong memory, but it can only be felt but cannot be expressed in words. Looking at the properties of the starfruit, Yulin almost couldn't hold it back and took a bite. Following Laolu's epic underwear, another, epic after-dinner fruit appeared. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 660. In addition to the treasure chest, the 100th floor also has a magma pool and no other monsters. Yulin resisted the urge to bite off the starfruit in one bite. Literally, Yulin couldn't figure out what this fruit did. But the grade is there, and as a reward for the 100th level mine, it shouldn't be too bad. Yulin walked down the stairs. He took a look at the mine on the 101st floor. The mine, which was glowing red and emitting blazing heat, was still full of monsters of all kinds. There is no difference from the 99th floor. So Yulin didn't plan to continue knocking down, and after buying starfruit, she decisively ended today's trip. Fortunately, since the last iridium ingot, Yulin fought all the way to the 100th floor and finally exploded the second iridium ingot. This time, I returned home with a full load. It was already after dusk when Yulin returned to the farm. The Supreme Mage stood eagerly at the door of the farmer's hut, looking forward to it. Ah! How could a perfectly good Supreme Mage live like a Wangfu stone? Yulin secretly lamented that the Supreme Mage's strength had dropped sharply, and waved to the Supreme Mage from afar. Where's life? Done. The Supreme Mage has put in a lot of effort. Everything he did was not for anything else, but simply to make Yulin spend more time discussing the profound knowledge of crystal pattern technique with him. Yulin quickened her pace and ignored the Supreme Mage. He walked straight to the craftsman's desk and opened the recipe interface. Formula. Yulin has been thinking about the gem duplication machine that she has been looking forward to, and finally gathered enough materials. During the thunder and lightning weather in the summer, Yulin inserted many lightning rods in the fields and produced more than 20 battery packs. Gold ingots not to mention, he has been working in the mine for so long, and there is still a surplus of gold ingots, enough to be sold for money. Etc. Sell for money? Yulin was stunned. He suddenly remembered something and quickly opened the farmer ranking list to take a look. Yan Cao, who had always been at the bottom, suddenly surpassed Wangabe, who took care of his wife every day, in terms of total assets, and reached the fourth strongest position among farmers. The top three are Yulin, Qianduoduo, by Runding. I see. Yan Cao turned out to make money by mining ore. As expected of a veteran, everyone has their own understanding of this trial. Yulin smiled, and after a quick check, she closed the ranking list. He took out the corresponding stones, gold ingots, battery pack, and the only 2 iridium ingots in his backpack from the box, and put them on the craftsman's table. In a flash of light, a very high-tech looking instrument appeared in the farmer's cabin. Oh! The Supreme Mage had been living in seclusion in the Mage Tower before, and he came over curiously at this moment. The Supreme Mage witnessed with his own eyes the process of a machine being created out of thin air. He frowned first, then shook his head and sighed, a magical spell. It seems that in the eyes of the Supreme Mage, all laws are unified, and everything can be summarized in the category of spells. This is the gem replicator. Yulin carefully placed the machine in the corner of the bedroom. This machine was too important and nothing could go wrong. After installing the gem copying machine, Yulin lowered his head and fiddled with it a few times. It seemed to be very simple to use. There was a battery pack inside and it was already powered on. He only needs to insert the gems he wants to copy into the corresponding slots, and after waiting for a period of time, new gems will be copied continuously. All that is needed to copy gems is this machine and the battery contained inside. It's very unscientific. No matter how Yulin thought about it, he felt that the scientific knowledge of his world could not explain the working principle of this machine. After thinking about it, it seems that only the word black technology can properly describe the existence of this gem copying machine. Yulin took out a perfect crystal. A perfect crystal contains the most energy. When Yulin brought these crystals back from the world of Auranos, she carefully classified them according to their grade. Perfect level crystals are the least, and Yulin is generally used as the main core of very large circuits. As of now, the stock of perfect crystals is indeed running low. If this gem copying machine can really copy any gem perfectly, then copying perfect crystal would be the most cost-effective for Yilin. After inserting the perfect grade crystal into the groove, various colors of light flashed on the panel of the gem copying machine, and an electronic sound of beep, beep, beep was emitted. After a while, lines of small words appeared on the screen of the instrument. Gem copying. Please wait with patience. Remaining time, 23 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Success. Yilin clenched his fists and his expression changed a bit. Is it weird? The Supreme Mage found it difficult to understand Yilin's excitement. The rules are different from world to world. The crystals I brought are not products of this world, Yilin explained. Just like my crystal pattern and your magic, there is a fundamental difference. But it works. The Supreme Mage pointed to the beeping gem copying machine and smiled slightly. This also proves that even in different worlds, the corresponding rules can be converted to each other. What you want to say is that our two kinds of knowledge can actually communicate with each other, right? Yilin saw through the Supreme Mage's thoughts. I'm not just trying to get into the daily late-night discussions by going back and forth. Yeah. The Supreme Mage nodded quickly. Okay, let's eat first and eat later. Confirming each other's knowledge with the Supreme Mage has become a daily task that Yilin is accustomed to. He did not refuse. Ahem, today, I will order the food. The Supreme Mage coughed twice, crossed his legs and floated in the air, with an aura of justice and awe-inspiringness all over his body, and made a reasonable request. Yilin stared at the mage with strange eyes as he floated up, his head almost hitting the ceiling. He seems to be getting more and more shameless. Why? The Supreme Mage, finished the farm work well today. I also helped you restart the oil press, sauce making machine, egg yolk machine, cheese press, and loom. The Supreme Mage held his head high and spoke confidently. The implication seems to be, as the dignified Supreme Mage, I am doing farm work. You have to take care of the food. Okay, please order. The Supreme Mage heard that Yilin agreed. He was afraid that the shameless farmer would turn around and regret it, so he started ordering with his fingers without saying anything. Crispy sea bass. Lobster bisque. Cheesy cauliflower. Spicy squid and clams hot pot. Grilled escargot. Ink pumpkin dumplings. Another blueberry millefeuille. That's it? I won't be able to eat any more. Yilin. After a sumptuous dinner. The Sorcerer Supreme burped with contentment. Yilin painfully counted the inventory consumed tonight. I thought to myself, if you don't hand over some groceries tonight, you'll just have to eat porridge for the rest of your life. Drink you to death. Communicate with each other during this time. Yilin also roughly understood the principle of so-called magic. Magic has similarities with crystal pattern art. The similarity lies in the underlying logic. They all evolve a certain kind of energy into various means to release it through a method similar to a circuit. But the most fundamental difficulty for Yilin to truly understand this theory is that, he cannot sense the energy from the dimensional rift that the Supreme Mage said. Of course, now that the Supreme Mage is trapped in Green's territory, he can't even sense it, let alone Yilin. Yilin asked not long ago. Then how do you cast spells now? When Yilin asked this question, the Supreme Mage looked troubled, shook his head helplessly, and told the truth, soul. The human soul is a huge energy source. It can be repaired slowly from the consumption of the soul. Once it is consumed excessively, even it can cause soul damage that can never be reversed. When he said these words, the Supreme Mage's face turned pale and pale, he lightly hammered his waist and sighed. Therefore, this is also the reason why Yilin has never been able to truly get started after understanding the spellcasting principles of the Supreme Mage. If you want to learn spells, you must first understand what energy from dimensions is, and you must meditate and sense the energy from other dimensions through hard practice and repeated training. But I can't sense it now. What to do? Serve cold. The road became a dead end. From the daily academic exchanges between the two scholars, the Supreme Master benefited even more. Because crystal pattern technique is a science and technology that anyone can learn, and the energy source Yulin is also readily available. As long as the Supreme Mage can understand its composition, Yulin's crystals can be used to easily construct an effective circuit. Yulin felt that she had suffered a big loss. In the exchange after the sumptuous dinner, as usual, the Supreme Master still spoke first. He was floating in the air and picked up the pattern easily. We mages, by absorbing energy, can create shields or weapons. We can become invisible and banish creatures to dimensional rifts. Powerful mages can even sense the activities of creatures from other dimensions. With the help of the artifact, we can even manipulate time and see through the present, past, and future. We can sense human minds and even experience out-of-body experiences. We mages, as long as we can draw energy from the dimensional space, we can do anything. Yulin rolled her eyes. This opening statement made people's blood boil. But this is not the first time the Supreme Mage has boasted in this way. The first time Yulin heard it, she was really frightened. But when Yulin wanted to ask him to show it, the Supreme Mage suddenly withered, saying that he had no energy and could not show it. "You're awesome, you should give it a try." Yulin's white eyes revealed this meaning. The Supreme Mage is also used to Yulin's silent cynicism. At first, the Supreme Mage still felt angry, but gradually, he couldn't be angry anymore. On the contrary, I felt elated and secretly happy. After all, he was the one who benefited the most from the academic exchanges between the two. The Supreme Mage could already use Yulin's crystal to initially construct some simple circuits, such as strengthening techniques, defense techniques, etc. Although these little tricks were basically ignored by him in his heyday. But he can't do it now. Using a completely unfamiliar power system to unleash this little skill is also a novel experience for the Supreme Mage who is thirsty for knowledge. Yulin waved, and a fruit knife floated towards Yulin from the kitchen knife holder. "I've wanted to ask for a long time. Your method of moving objects through the air does not use crystal pattern technology. Where does your power come from?" Yulin was startled. This is a very simple question. As usual, if Yulin is in a good mood, she will directly tell the Supreme Mage that this is psychic power. But the two of them were in a state of academic exchange, and their minds collided with each other fiercely during the discussion, which was equivalent to a different kind of brainstorming. The telekinesis that Yulin had already mastered should have become an instinctive ability like breathing and heartbeat, but a question from the Supreme Mage made Yulin fall into deep thought. Yes. Why has he never looked into this issue? What is the nature of telekinesis? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 661. As long as you are human, you can breathe. What is the nature of breath ability? As long as you are human, you have a heartbeat. But what is the nature of heartbeat? Yulin's head seemed to have been cracked open with a hammer. There is a feeling that I suddenly understand, but I don't understand even more. To Yulin, the power of thought is like breathing and heartbeat, which come and go as soon as they are called. The process of unlocking his telekinesis was a matter of course. The moment the mental attribute was unlocked, there was a pop, like a bottle cork being opened. But the question of the Supreme Mage reached into Yulin's heart. He asked what? But Yulin thought, why is this? Yulin was lost in thought. He stretched out an index finger and drew circles in the air at random. The fruit knife also followed Yulin's fingers, up and down, left and right, front and back, making smooth movements in the air. The Supreme Mage was indeed curious. He knows Yulin doesn't understand magic. I also understand a little bit about the basic principles of crystal pattern technique. He could tell that the hand Yilin displayed was more like an innate superpower, rather than some kind of technology or method. Oh! Suddenly, the Supreme Mage seemed to have remembered something, and slammed his head. I remember, many years ago, I had a friend named Wanda. Her abilities came from herself, and they were similar to your abilities. Very similar, of course. She is much stronger than you and can crush you to death with one slap. In order to vividly illustrate how powerful Wanda is, the Supreme Mage curled his hands together and made a clenching gesture, and added, her abilities are really terrifying. From herself. Hearing this, Yilin came back from his thoughts. He actively ignored the second half of the Supreme Mage's sentence and focused on the first half. What do you mean? I'm trying to say that you might be a mutant. Become a species. The corner of Yilin's mouth twitched slightly, and he subconsciously felt that this was not a good word. But he still listened patiently. The Supreme Mage smiled slightly. Mutants, as the name suggests, are mutant humans that are contrary to normal human evolution. They often have a variety of strange abilities. Some can change reality, and some can run as fast as a chicken. Some turn green when angry and are extremely powerful, some can breathe fire, and some can freeze. Isn't this a superpower? Yilin was speechless and pointed hard at his face. Do you think I am someone who has never seen a science fiction movie? Absolutely. The Supreme Mage seemed to understand what Yilin meant by science fiction movies and did not question it. He continued to explain, in the world where I was born and raised, there were many such mutants. There are even some secret agencies that specialize in how to make them. They generally believe that mutants with various magical abilities derive their power from their genes themselves. In other words, they no longer belong to the category of human beings from the gene level. So they only then do we have power that humans cannot possess. That's why I said that their power comes from themselves, not from any additional source. I think you may belong to this category. Well, after talking for a long time, the Supreme Mage said, and even he recognized it. He came to this conclusion and concluded with, you are not a human being. Puff. Yilin heard the Supreme Mage's conclusion, which was obviously a joke, but very serious. But I couldn't laugh. Because, in the bloodline column on his apostle panel, there is indeed some non-human bloodline. In other words, at least from a physical level, he is not purely human. But whether he is a pure human being has nothing to do with this matter. When he mastered the power of telekinesis, it was obvious that his bloodline had not changed yet. Yilin mentally denied the Supreme Mage's conclusion partly. Half a minute later, Yilin decided not to continue discussing the philosophical issue of whether she is a human being with the Supreme Mage. He started brainstorming and used this incident to lead to another question. You said that the essence of spells is released by energy through different spells. Most of the energy is drawn from other powerful beings in the dimensional rift. But have you ever thought about the things you draw? What is energy to them? The Supreme Mage wanted to say something, but his situation was the same as Yilin's. He was in the dark under the lamp, and he was suddenly stunned. Yes. Source from time? Space. Dark. We are all. But the Supreme Mage knew that what Yilin wanted was not such a simple answer. He was asking deeper philosophical questions. Seeing the Supreme Mage stunned in mid-air, Yilin threw out the soul questionnaire. Let me give you an example. Suppose that the power of those beings you borrowed also comes from themselves. If humans themselves can be that powerful, does that mean that some kind of power from human beings can also be used as the energy source to drive spells? Impossible. The Supreme Mage thought for a moment, shook his head, and spoke firmly. Why? Because humans have limits. I know that. What if humans can break through this so-called limit? The Supreme Mage was stunned again. He suddenly remembered that his mentor seemed to have said similar words before. The discussion between the two fell silent. Yulin suddenly remembered something. Didn't you say before that you could snap a person's soul out of their body? Come on, give me a slap. The so-called soul, in Xiao 11's words, seems to belong to a certain mental state. Yulin vaguely grasped a certain point, but could not explain it for a while. No, unexpectedly, the Supreme Mage was so frightened that he clutched his waist tightly, his face turned pale, and he refused. The consumption is too great. Yulin smiled slightly and began to talk about the preparation method of a dish in a persuasive tone. I recently developed a new recipe. First, we carefully select a hen that has been running in the farmland for 60 days. The meat is of the highest quality. Then select the finest morels and chanterelles, soak them and stuff them into the chicken's belly together with the finest rare sea cucumbers. Reseal the chicken belly and apply a thick layer of rose nectar on the surface of the chicken. Roasted slowly, the rose nectar on the surface of the chicken will completely penetrate into the chicken, and the natural aroma of morels and chanterelles, as well as the freshness and sweetness of sea cucumbers, will perfectly blend with the original flavor of the chicken from the inside out. One bite will make you feel as if you are standing on the edge of the forest, facing the sea. The breath of nature completely wraps you up, and the sweet gravy will completely melt your taste buds. You know. This may be a kind of the feeling of soul explosion. Stop, the Supreme Mage's expression was extremely serious, and he raised his palms high, for fear that Yulin would not see it. Please let me come with this palm. I am willing. You must let me come. After saying that, he slapped Yulin's chest without any hesitation. Bang. The next second. After a burst of ecstasy, Yulin saw her butt. Everything around him seemed to be still. The expression of the Supreme Mage is 1/3 firm, 3/3 calm, 3/3 wise, and 1 part contains deeply hidden physical pain. His palm had not yet left Yulin's chest, and everything in front of him seemed to have been slowed down countless times, passing slowly at an imperceptible speed. He became a psycho again. In the last 2 experiences, Yulin achieved it with the power of epic items after using the guild resident token. Another time, it was under the influence of the tentacle monster in Kanzaki City, but that time was a little different and cannot be counted. But this time, it was because of the palm of the Supreme Mage. It was also this time that Yulin truly experienced the Supreme Mage's abilities beyond teleportation, which were not just a boast, and was impressed by this mage. Good guy. Sure enough, there is something. This is what an out-of-body experience is. After a while, the Supreme Mage took the initiative to become a spiritual state and floated next to Yulin. Yulin raised her head. In the dark night, the sky above her head seemed to be shrouded in a faint light curtain. That's the limit. The Supreme Mage knew that Yulin could also see the light curtain in the soul state, and there was a bit of desolation in his expression. It is precisely because of it that I cannot leave this world. The Supreme Mage is trapped here. Sure enough, Yulin thought of the familiar bat pattern on the Chiao supermarket sign. This wave is basically a stone hammer. This place should be the same as Green Town, and it is inextricably related to that green. But Yulin has repeatedly confirmed that he can gain chaos points by spawning monsters in the mine. Therefore, the core worldview of this trial world is not as simple as being in a dream world like Greentown. Green's level is too high and full of mysteries. There are many places that Yulin cannot understand and is full of doubts. Why did you come out too? Yulin asked. This way, we have more time. The Supreme Mage's night may seem long, but in fact the night is short and time waits for no one. Anyway, Yulin's soul was knocked out, so he simply left his body and communicated with Yulin in his soul state, so that he could make full use of his time and discuss more academic issues. Yulin closed her eyes. For the first time, he had time to carefully feel the mental state. This is what the Supreme Mage calls soul. The physical objects around me seem to be still. Yulin pointed at the knives in the kitchen. Looking intently, A thin thread slowly shot out from Yilin's finger. Yilin felt the source of that thin line. After a while, Yilin suddenly realized that it came from his brain. No, not exactly. In his current state, he is completely separated from his body. His brain, in front. Not here. Then, the source of telekinesis should be spirit, or the soul itself. It turns out that for the spiritual side, spiritual strength is the truly indestructible weapon. Yilin lowered his head and thought. In the process of contemplation, it seemed like a moment, and it seemed like a long time passed. The Supreme Mage smiled slightly beside Yilin and did not interrupt. I don't know how long it will take. Yilin opened her eyes again. In his eyes, there was a faint light flashing. I see. As he spoke, Yilin imitated the gestures of the Supreme Mage and moved them in front of him. A radiant line followed Yilin's fingers, leaving a corresponding trajectory in the still space. That's a circle. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 662. In the mental state, the world around you seems to be still. But Yilin knew that it was not the world around her that was still. Rather, at this moment, his thinking speed was so fast that the passage of time around him gave the illusion of almost standing still. Finally, the Supreme Mage breathed a long sigh of relief. The circle Yilin drew out of thin air lasted for just a moment, and then disappeared in front of Yilin and the Supreme Mage. Even in the eyes of the Supreme Mage, the circle drawn by Yilin was inferior to that of him in the novice stage, but in the final analysis, it was still a success. This inconspicuous circle means that Yilin has made a big step forward in the practice of magic. You're not even close yet. The Supreme Mage smiled slightly. You are also a weak scumbag when it comes to crystal patterns. Yilin refused to admit defeat. The arrogant mage. The two communicated deeply in the soul state. Forgot the passage of time. Finally, Yilin's vision went dark, and an irresistible suction force came from the direction of her butt. The next second, Yilin opened her eyes and looked down at the Supreme Mage's hand that was still pressing on her chest and refused to leave. They communicated for so long in the mental state, but in real time, only a few minutes passed. Yilin felt like she was exhausted, sore and weak. There was also a pinprick-like pain in the center of my eyebrow. Yilin casually opened the apostle panel and took a look. It turned out that the spiritual energy value was almost exhausted. You're not even close yet. The Supreme Mage spoke with disdain, but in his heart he was extremely surprised. This guy has great talent. After stepping into the realm of magic, after a communication in the soul state, his progress was so fast that even the Supreme Mage was secretly stunned. But it's a million points worse than what he was before. The Supreme Mage felt that he was awesome during his apprenticeship. Give. The Supreme Mage dug around on his body and threw a bronze object towards Yilin. This is. Yilin took the bronze object. That's a ring. But the shape looks a little strange. Viewed from the side, the ring looks like a bee and can fit on 2 fingers. On the upper side of the ring, there is a rectangular piece of metal cast together with the 2 rings. There are some obscure textures engraved on the ring surface, which seem to hide some mystery. This is the hanging ring, an artifact among mages. It can help you stabilize your energy and protect you when you travel through dimensional space. You have to be grateful to me. The mage blew out 2 strong breaths from his nostrils, huffing and puffing, raised his chin, and pointed at Yilin with a ring of beard. Artifact. Yilin stared at the Supreme Mage with wide eyes. He didn't understand how this self-proclaimed arrogant, wise, and handsome mage could degenerate into talking nonsense. Fraud. When Yilin caught the hanging ring, the properties of the ring suddenly appeared in front of Yilin. Apprentice hanging ring. Grade none. Durable, cannot be worn. Effect: it can help the apprentice mage cast spells better. Explanation: in a certain world, it was forged by the first generation Supreme Mage, Ancient One, with a spell carved on it by Ancient One. In Kamataj, the Mage's holy land, each apprentice mage has one. P.S. People who are too obsessed with darkness will eventually sink into darkness. One in each hand. The corners of Yilin's mouth twitched slightly. Artifact. How dare you brag? When Yilin carefully read the attribute description of apprentice's hanging ring. The Supreme Mage thought that Yilin didn't know that the hanging ring was a commodity in the Kamataj Holy Land, so he still boasted in front of Yilin, "This ring is a rare treasure for you now, of course, I don't need it anymore," etc. Yilin noticed something. This hanging ring looks like it's all patinate. How many years has this been going on? Yilin suddenly understood, is this something you commonly use? The Supreme Master stretched out an index finger and waved it gently in front of Yilin. He raised the corners of his mouth and said calmly, "The meaning of life does not lie in oneself. True happiness lies in the achievement of others." Thanks. Yilin held the ring tightly and was silent for a long time. He didn't know what to say, so he only said 2 words. But 10 seconds later, Yilin suddenly knew what to say and added, "Tomorrow, extra food, extra big food." Oh, okay. The meaning of life does not lie in oneself, true happiness lies in achieving others. When the Supreme Master spoke these words, Yilin looked at the nostalgic and sad expression of the Supreme Mage and vaguely guessed everything. Those were the words of a person who was very important to the Supreme Mage. This hanging ring was once very important to the Supreme Mage. If you guessed correctly, it should be the man named Ancient One in the description of hanging ring. At least the name looks like a tough guy. Perhaps at the beginning, Yilin deliberately approached the Supreme Mage, harvested wool, and blew up the bunker. It was indeed a utilitarian element to use the Supreme Mage and gain benefits from him. But when the Supreme Mage gave him the hanging ring, Yilin began to sincerely want to help the Supreme Mage leave this strange place. Uranus once said that the world is a ship and the universe is a river. Although I can't imagine what kind of concept this is, since the Supreme Mage can come here, there must be a way to leave here. Early next morning, a blizzard fell from the sky. The gloomy sky seemed to have collapsed, and the sky was dark. Yilin usually gets up at 6 o'clock. He rinsed his mouth while thinking about how to help the Supreme Mage leave. The arrogant Supreme Mage wore a farmer's hat and got up early. He was rolling up a pile of hay that had just been pulled out of the granary in his red cloak, and was preparing to go to the chicken coop and cowshed to feed Yilin's precious chickens, ducks, rabbit, pig, cow, sheep. Meow. The kitten squatted lazily on the Supreme Mage's shoulder, steady. During this time, the Supreme Mage perfectly became Yilin's farm assistant and became very familiar with it. Remember not to open the door of the chicken coop or the cowshed, otherwise they will run out in the winter and freeze to death. I also have time to go fishing. Squid are abundant in winter nights. I have long wanted to eat iced squid tentacles. Oh, I almost forgot, I don't have a fishing rod at home. Forget it. As for squid, I will bring half of it before I come back from the mine. Come back, tonight's dinner will depend on it. In the cellar, in the innermost row, there are several bottles of wine that have been brewed. If you want to drink it, wake up in advance. It is a natural wine that is not easy to taste in my world. Before Yilin left the house, she carefully instructed the Supreme Mage on the work to be done today. Oh. The Supreme Mage made an okay gesture. It's really unimaginable that the Supreme Mage was reluctant to help at first, but it's really fun to do it. This is what humans are. Before leaving, Yilin took a look at the progress of the gem copying machine. There were still a few hours left. Yilin is very much looking forward to witnessing the birth of the first replication crystal. As long as there is no difference between this replica crystal and the real crystal, then, the plan works. Yilin remembered that there was an epic fruit in her backpack. He hasn't figured out how to prepare this strange fruit yet, so he can only leave it for now. In the past 2 days, Yilin's progress in the mine has slowed down because she was addicted to practicing magic. He didn't want Yan Cao and the others to get ahead of the curve and take away the only mine layer reward. Yilin hurriedly rushed towards the mine again. During this period, Yilin rarely went to Gugu town. Not far from the entrance of the mine, Yilin happened to see Yan Cao, Bai Runding, Wangabe and Qianduoduo sneaking into the mine with their guys on their backs. Sure enough, we formed a team. Yilin shook his head, not surprised by this result. Their cooperation in clearing the mines does not violate their original cooperation contract. Presumably because he was ahead of schedule in the mine, Yan Cao felt terrible pressure. After telling others about this, they spontaneously formed a temporary team, hoping to compete with Yilin in terms of progress in the mine. Then I can't lose. Yilin smiled slightly. After the other 4 people took the mine elevator down to the mine, Yilin waited for the elevator and entered the floor he unlocked. I believe everyone else has discovered the unusualness of the mine. A mine that constantly produces monsters, explodes materials, and produces equipment is like an infinite treasure house. It's such a cold winter. If they don't pay attention to the mine, it would be a shame for them as farmers. Half an hour later, the mine began to resound with the continuous wailing and panting of various monsters. In the mineral layers after the 100th layer, the types of monsters do not change much. As the mine went deeper, the temperature in the mine became even hotter, so hot that Yilin had to cover her body with a layer of psychodynamic insulation film to isolate part of the high temperature. Even so, Yilin was sweating profusely and soaking wet while killing monsters. Another difference is that the monster seems to be more angry and refreshes faster. Often, just after Yilin kills the monster army in front of him, before he can set up a bomb to blow up the staircase, a large black mass of lava bats angrily launches a self-destructive attack at Yilin from the darkness. This made Yilin wonder whether her behavior of spawning monsters had angered someone in the mine and triggered public outrage. Throughout the whole day, even Yilin could not advance quickly. It's not that the monster is difficult to kill, but it's too difficult to find the stairs leading to the next floor while killing the monster. Today is another day without the discovery of iridium ingots. Since Yilin promised the Supreme Mage that he would have a big dinner tonight, he had no choice but to leave the mine early, activate his abilities at the beach, and catch a large amount of fish. Various fish curled up into a huge ball above Yilin's head. Yilin took advantage of the dark moon, high winds, and heavy wind and snow to quietly return to the farm. Farmer, farmer, although the Supreme Mage was familiar with Yilin, he still used to call Yilin farmer, just like Yilin used to call the Supreme Mage mage. Oh cake seller, Crystal has really copied it successfully. Yilin caught most of the tuna, sardine, redfish, squid, herring, small shark, sea cucumber, nourishing sea cucumber and other messy fish caught from the sea. Class, stuff it into the dimensional shipping box, leaving some that look delicious as spare ingredients. When he walked into the room, the Supreme Mage was holding a shining crystal in his hand, dancing and grinning like an old child who was too anxious.